can data do more than inform? How can it empower us to lead with purpose and create lasting change? On this episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast, I'm joined by Nicole Nicola, Director of Economic and Demographic Research at the New Jersey Department of Labor. She's an adjunct professor of business statistics, sought-after speaker, and leadership coach. Nicole shares how data is at the core of what drives meaningful decisions, not just in the workplace, but in our everyday lives. Think of all the times you've counted miles walked, dollars spent, or calories consumed. We're constantly collecting information that shapes our path. And through her leadership program, Nicole helps others tap into that insight by encouraging them to map their leadership journey, create a personal tagline, and define their own 10 commandments for how they want to lead and live. And of course, we have a little fun as we discuss Nicole's love of chocolate. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe to the Today is the Day Changemakers YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Today is the Day Live It. And remember, Today is the Day is more than just a podcast. Through my work, I provide sales training, leadership development, executive coaching, and support for entrepreneurs and organizations looking to connect more deeply with their clients. Let's connect and explore how I can help you, your team, or your organization take that next step toward authentic growth and meaningful connection. Go to todayisthedayliveit.com. Have a great week, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast. I'm your host, Jody Grinwald, and as I say, every episode, I interview the changemakers, the inspirers, and those who disrupt the status quo in the best way possible. And today, I have Nicole Nicola. How are you, Nicole?
Good. How about you?
I'm good. I'm good. Welcome. So happy to have you here. Finally, right? We're finally doing this, so
Well,
welcome.
yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to do what I always do. I'm going to read a little bit about your bio and then we'll get into a great conversation. So, with a rich background in policy and economic analysis, Nicole currently leads as the Director of Economic and Demographic Research at the New Jersey Department of Labor. EDR has a talented team of about 50 economists, analysts, coders, and survey takers. The EDR team is responsible for collecting and disseminating critical information such as employment, occupation, business, and population. We'll get a little bit into that. Nicole actively mentors and coaches individuals both within and outside her department. She leads a leadership training program aimed at helping participants discover their unique management style, refine their leadership strategies, and strengthen their ability to connect with their teams effectively. She's an adjunct professor at the College of New Jersey, where she teaches a course on business statistics to undergraduate students. She serves as an internship supervisor and mentor. And prior to this, Nicole's career saw her in pivotal roles at both international and state levels as a research scientist, which I can't wait to talk a little bit about, me being a scientist, at the New Jersey Department of the Treasury. She specialized in regression analysis to study the interplay of variable affecting tax revenues. All these things are a whole other language to me, so I'm excited that you get to share. She's attended prestigious educational institutions in the state. In 2023, she obtained her doctorate in business administration from Rutgers Business School. She's been invited to speak in so many different places. If I listed all of them, there's lots of bullet points in front of me right now, but I'll read one or two. Governor's STEM Scholars. She's Rutgers University, Salisbury University, National Association of State Workforce Agencies, Capital Region Minority Chamber of Commerce, and which I love them, and multiple others. So Nicole, we could take the whole interview and me just read all of your bio, but instead let's chat. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's easier. Let's tell stories.
And let's tell stories for sure. And I don't want to get tongue-tied with all the different acronyms and names that you have in your bio. So welcome and thank you again. So when I read your when I read your bio, I think about all the things that I am not good at, and a lot of those things are in your bio. So I'm so happy to have an expert to talk about the things that you're talking about. The leadership piece, that's the thing we have in common and we love to do is to teach that. But let's go back in time just for a few minutes to get our audience familiar with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, the type of childhood you had.
Yeah, so I grew up in Haifa, and then over 20 years ago, I came to this wonderful country as an au pair, where I lived with a wonderful family in New Jersey and Princeton, and I took care of their kid. And then they sent me to school, and I stayed here and I worked. And I loved it. I loved the culture, the people, the country. So I decided to stay here. And as a child, I was very energetic, kind of like bouncing all over. Loved to eat chocolate, which I still have an unhealthy relationship with chocolate. In fact, when I was younger, anytime I got my hands on money, I would go and rush to the grocery store and buy a chocolate and eat it right away. So I really love chocolate. And then the secret is out. When somebody wants something and want me to work on a project, they always buy me chocolate. And then I'm like, okay, I approve. I will help. I'll work. But a very happy child, energetic, and then decided to move to this country for 1 year. And then, as I said, I fell in love and decided to stay here.
Well, I want to go back a minute because you see, I learned so much about people that I know a little bit. Even I know when we first talked, I don't think I remembered the au pair story for sure. And you
Mhm.
mentioned something, they put you in school. Just explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, so part of the program when you come here as an au pair, they will put you typically in a community college. So I went to the wonderful Mercer County Community College, and they teach you English because you come here, you really don't know the language. And they put you on ESL classes, and then they can put you through a degree, which what the family decided to do. They were kind enough to help me pay for school and then put me through various educational institutions and made sure that I got my bachelor's degree, which it's very expensive, not easy to
Mm-hmm.
do, but they were
Mm-hmm.
extremely kind and saw the potential and invested in me, and which helped me ultimately get a doctorate.
Oh my goodness, that's unbelievably incredible. Are you still in touch with that family?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah, yeah. The
Oh,
kid now that I took care of, he's out of college, has his first job, so he's doing very well.
and was it how many years were you with them?
So, um, probably around like 7, 8 years. Yeah.
Okay, so the child remembers you. It wasn't kind of an in and out situation. What a beautiful, that's such a
Yeah.
beautiful story. Um, but back when you were a kid, what did you think you were going to be when you grew up? Because I'm assuming you didn't think you were going to come here and be an au pair and then move into the position you're in today.
No, no. My dream was to make enough money to be able to buy pizza because I loved pizza. That was my dream at 6 years old, kid. I didn't have big dreams, although like I have family members who are doctors, engineers, lawyers. And seeing movies, you see like the paralegal, the cool cop, all of that great things. But I didn't know what I wanted to do until in my 20s when I went to college and started taking internships and taking jobs that I really found interest in helping people as well as working with numbers, and which led me to what I do today. Today, my team and I, we collect data and then based on requests from officials, businesses, nonprofits, job seekers, and many others, we customize the data based on something they need. So for example, for a job seeker, they might be looking for a job. So we help them to see job postings, which tells us about employer demand. We also can look at job skills through the job posting. So if you're in Mercer County, you're looking for a job, we can show you top occupations, top skills. And this way, we help you hopefully find a job. And what we like to think of ourselves as the Starbucks of data. You go to Starbucks to customize, yeah, there we go. You go to Starbucks to customize your drink. You can come to us and we customize your data based on a project you're working on or a need you have. For example, we had a construction company that was betting on a project in Mercer County, and they wanted to account for the labor costs in the county. So we gave them information about the labor cost in Mercer County in terms of occupation. We did different things like percentiles, average wage, median wage, to help them make informed decision about the project.
So anybody can reach out to you, your team, or you directly to find out what they need in order to get a job. I mean, I didn't. I'm learning. I had no idea that it was more of that type of a thing where us who are either looking for jobs or businesses who are looking to find out data are able to do that, just by reaching out to you and your team. So give us kind of the scope of how many team members again did you say you had?
We have about 50 economists, service specialists, and coders and data scientists. But we also, at the department, which we have a whole workforce development group led by Jim Manning, and they help job seekers and businesses come to us and get information about the economy, about businesses, about job seekers. So if anybody's interested, they can connect with me on LinkedIn and I can connect them with my staff if they need the data or if they're looking for partnerships or apprenticeships. I can also connect them with Jim Manning and his team.
I don't know if you're going to know the answer to this question, but obviously we have listeners that are outside of the state of New Jersey. So if you're in the US, is what I'm going to say, do you know if your job is replicated in all the states, several of the states, a few of the states? I don't know if you know the answer to this question, but I'm sure people listening might be going, "Oh, I wonder if where I live, I have this too."
Yeah, typically in every state, there's an office like mine. In states, a lot of them emphasize workforce initiatives. So, yeah, if anybody's interested and they're from another state, I can connect them with the director in that state and they will help them. We had a case actually through a friend who lost their job in New York, and I connected them with the director there to help them with the UI because for some reason they couldn't get to the UI folks. So through the other director in New York, we were able to help them. So there's always ways to help others. And you mentioned a few organizations that I'm part of, and they're on the national level, and they bring us together at least like 4 times a year to talk about initiatives and issues and collaborate. And some of it is we help, like, hey, I saw somebody from your state and they're dealing with this issue. Can you help them? And I provide the contact information. Everybody's very helpful in the labor market information community. It's really the best community I've been part of. Everybody wants to help others, organizations, businesses to thrive and succeed.
What do you love most about your role? Because I can see your energy around it, and I can tell how much you love helping people. You've said the word help a lot, right? Because that's what you
Hmm.
do.
Hmm.
What is
Hmm.
is that what you love the most about the role, or is there anything else?
Well, like you said, I mentioned helping people, but also bringing positive impact to businesses, employees, and even my own employees. So, for example, if we hire somebody or we promote somebody, that income, the new income that is coming to them is going to help them have a better life for them and their families. So I love to implement a lot of initiatives that bring positive impact to our community. And there's a quote that I follow, which I learned last year from Dr. Jeffrey Robinson, who's at Rutgers University. He said that success is timely, but impact is timeless. And I hope that the impact I bring to the community and to my folks is timeless and it stays with them for forever or for as long as they live.
So success, I'm writing this down. Success is timely,
Mhm.
but
Impact is timeless.
I love that. That's a great quote. So thank you. I have a feeling others will be writing that one down too, because it's nice to be able to have something to remember and think about. Um, what was a defining moment that kind of led you to where you are today?
Oh man, there were a few. One of them is when I attended the College of New Jersey, I met Dr. Bowen and Dr. Daniel Bowen, and he taught us how to look for data using government websites. So, for example, he taught us you can go to the US Census website and you could look at educational attainment and income. And as educational attainment goes up, we see income goes up as well. So I was able to take that knowledge and when I was applying for internships and jobs, to tell the potential employers, hey, I know how to look for data. I can find information for you. And my first internship after college at the local chamber of commerce led at the time by President Robert Brunetti and Vice President Liz Tyndall, which I know you know them. They're
Absolutely.
leaders within our community. They emphasize the importance of data. So if President Brunetti was going to speak at an event, he wanted me to provide data, and he uses that in his speaking engagement. If he wanted to learn about what members are thinking, we would do a survey. So everything we did was through data, through the lens of data and information. So it helped me build data-driven mindset. So between the College of New Jersey, meeting wonderful professors there, I went through the political science department. They have really impressive professors, and then going to work for a local chamber and learning about the importance of data and decision making. It kind of carried me until now, where even I do personal decisions with data. If you buy a house, what is the potential of this house in 10 years, 20 years? How could it contribute to your retirement, right? So data and using data not only for professional needs, but also for personal needs, could help you build a sustainable path for the future. And think of it as we're data points, you know, our heights, how many calories we eat, how many miles we drive, how much we spend, our mortgage. So everything we do is with data and numbers. So if we can get comfortable at least with basic numbers, we can at least understand what we can do to make informed decisions as much as we can. You know, there are limitations, but as much as we can to make decisions with data.
Yeah, I know. And so critical. I mean, I love what you said about buying a house, doing your research. I mean, we're all doing research about something. And we don't even realize that there's always something that we're looking up or going on. And now with, with all the advances in AI and all these other things, there's lots of ways to do research now, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
AI something that you're using at this point too as well? Are you heavily using it? And if you don't mind me asking, just for those listeners, which one do you like? Because people like ChatGPT, which is mine, but other people Gemini. So it's just nice to know, what are the people who are embedded in data using?
Yeah, so there's different ones that I hear about. We're fortunate in New Jersey because the government created our own chat GPT, so we can use that. It's in-house, and we can use it for coding, for writing, for even strategic kind of plans. I personally use typically chat GPT because I code a lot, so coding is a big area. Or I'm trying to think of different strategies or different ideas, and I'll be like, "Hey, ChatGPT, I'm thinking of this. What do you think?" Because you could play kind of a role with ChatGPT and tell ChatGPT, suppose you're the president of a chamber and I'm doing a presentation about X. What would you want to hear? And it gives you ideas in addition to what you are doing. But I heard Claude is great for writing, for example, which is my manager's favorite, Leslie Hirsch. She loves Claude, but all of them are good. There's a new one my friend was telling me, Perplexity.
Yeah, okay.
Not many people know it, but it's similar to ChatGPT and Claude, and it also has a lot of great information. I tell my students to use it as a tutor. You have to upskill in today's time. So if you're going to an interview and somebody asks you about ChatGPT or in general large
Mhm.
language models, you need to be able to articulate a little bit how you use it and how you prompt it, because it's all about prompting. If you prompt it correctly, you can build a whole code easily, but it takes time to build that skill. So I've been using ChatGPT since it came out. So I have a little bit, a couple of years now. I guess it's been around 2, 3 years. And I use it for every little thing I'm trying to do, especially with coding. It used to be like if I wanted to code something, I had to spend hours looking for a code online, write sometimes posts, hey, I'm working on this code. What would you recommend doing? Now it's all within, a sentence, I get everything there. So it made me more productive, and I can answer coding questions very swiftly.
And it has become like an assistant, right? I mean, without a doubt. But you're a couple of years in. I'm about. I don't want to let everybody know, but I really just only started using it like 6, 8 months ago. It's not that
Mm,
long since I've been using it. And wow, what a difference because I'm, multiple businesses and writing every post for all the social media and all the other things that you're doing takes up that could be a full-time job by itself. So having
mhm,
AI is
mhm.
great. But as an adjunct professor yourself, how do you feel about your students using it?
I embrace it. I tell them when they email me sometimes, I'll ask, did you check with ChatGPT first? Because my goal is to teach them real world skills because they're going to spend at college 4 years or 6 years, but then they're going to be in the labor force for the rest of their life, potentially. So my goal is to teach them the best skills and the most sought after skills by employers so they're ready for the labor force. And I tell them this. I do exercises with ChatGPT. For example, if you find an image of data on Google, you can put it in ChatGPT and ask it to transform it into an Excel format. So now, rather than you trying to download it, move it from PDF to Excel, which sometimes doesn't work, ChatGPT can do it for you. Or I was working on a presentation and I told ChatGPT, take this data and rank it for me, do this calculation and rank it. Where before I would do it myself, which is no problem, it's doable, but then ChatGPT can do it within 10 seconds. So it saved me the 10 minutes I need to code it and do it together and put it together and then present it. So there are efficiencies in ChatGPT that the students can learn and then use it in their jobs to make them stand out compared to their colleagues.
Yeah, I know for a lot of the younger students, like they're being pushed not to use it, right? Because obviously they need to be able to know their math, their multiplication, their division, like all of the basic types of things, especially, junior, intermediate schools and high schools, they're pushing them,
Mm-hmm.
they're
Mm-hmm.
actually looking through systems to make sure that they are not using it and it didn't come directly from there. I've heard stories of them not even reformatting it and it's still having like the prompt in there. So I have teacher friends who tell me interesting stories about that. But as adults in the labor force and those who are working multiple roles, it's a really important resource, and thank you for sharing that. I know you're an adjunct professor. What do you teach?
So I teach business statistics, and we start from the basics of average median all the way to a linear regression and how you create a regression, looking at the influence of the dependent variable on the independent variable on the dependent variable. So think about it. The simplest way I can explain this is think about if I decide to eat ice cream every day. I'm like, every day I'm going to have a scoop or two or three or four or more. What happens to my weight? And there's fluctuation. And now I'm going to run a regression to test if eating ice cream leads to higher weight, for example. So I'm trying to test if there's a positive relationship between eating more ice cream and gaining weight. That's the simplest way I can explain it. Or eating pizza or chocolate. As you know, I love food. So, it's a great class. The students typically are very engaged, and they don't use ChatGPT as much as I would have thought they would. But I do promote it, except that on the midterm and the quizzes, they'll have their calculator, they'll have their pencil and the equation sheet. So they have to know how to do the steps. Another professor, he was telling me what he does is they'll submit a homework paper and he doesn't know if they use ChatGPT or not. So he quizzes them on the stuff they submitted this way to make sure that they did it. So if they fail the quiz, he knows it was a copy and paste from ChatGPT. And that's one way to hold them accountable because part of being an adult and part of being in the labor force, you have to be accountable. So I always tell them, and it's a famous quote I saw from somebody who said, large language models are 97% accurate, but 100% confident. So they're going to hallucinate. They're going to give you wrong information. So you have to look at the information and judge whether it's a fact or an opinion. It's a fact or a fiction. And one way we do it is we run the same prompt in multiple large language models. So maybe I go to ChatGPT, then I check Claude. But you have to be careful that not everything you're getting it's true. Like I heard a case where two lawyers submitted a brief to the court and they used ChatGPT and ChatGPT created a whole case. Then I read an article in The Economist talking about the problem with ChatGPT or large language models. ChatGPT is kind of the representation because it was the first large language model that was released. But if you ask ChatGPT something, it always responds. It never tells you, I don't know. Right, that's a problem. So if you ask it, who am I married to? It will make up a story for you. So and it's not like where part of leadership is to understand sometimes I don't know things and I will get things wrong. That's part of being accountable. ChatGPT doesn't have that. It's 100% confident that will always give you an answer for your question. So you have to be cautious and take everything with a grain of salt.
Absolutely. And I want to go back to what you said about eating. I hope that the statistics show that you do not gain any weight if you have a scoop of ice cream every single day.
No comment.
No comment. I love it. Speaking of which, we should have asked this question. What's your favorite chocolate? You've mentioned chocolate like 2 or 3 times now. So what's the favorite?
Um, I don't, this is my problem. I don't have a favorite. If it looks like a chocolate, I will eat it. White chocolate, dark chocolate, milk chocolate. I do like Swiss chocolate. Forgot the name of the company, but there's one when I go to DC, I always buy it. It's so delicious. I'll have to look up the name. But yeah, I don't have a favorite, unfortunately. Maybe my least favorite is white chocolate, but if it's in front of me, I will eat it. I
You
don't
will
have
eat it.
that discipline when it comes to chocolate.
Listen, my coffee is mocha. So I understand,
Mm,
and I have one of those a day. So, and you mentioned Starbucks before, and I have one right in front of me. As most people know, that's my thing. But
hmm
have you been
hmm
hearing just really quick about the Dubai chocolate? Have you tried that? Everybody's been talking about that, but
Dubai
Dubai,
chocolate, yeah, yeah. When I go home, they always buy it. It's very expensive. Yep, and I tried it. I thought it was great. I thought it was great. Yeah,
I
it's
was
a
going to
big
try it.
thing right now. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's a big thing right now. And I saw the price tag on that chocolate. I was like, wow, that is fancy chocolate. So that's I have to taste it. But so let's talk about leadership and let's talk about leadership skills and your passion for teaching on this because we do have this in very much in common and I loved hearing what you're doing and hopefully there'll be things we can do together in the future.
hmm
But talk to
hmm
us about your passion about that.
Yeah, so in the past 15 years, I always managed people. And part of, going back to love, helping people and having a positive influence, I had to improve my skills. The way I was 15 years ago, it's really not like today. And what I did as a result is I had to learn various lessons. And then based on education experience, I created this leadership workshop that I do. But before I go to that, I'll tell you like three big lessons I learned. One is keep things simple. If you're confident and you know your stuff, you should be able to execute projects and keeping them simple. Now, there are areas when we enter new territory, it might be a little bit more complex, but generally speaking, we're doing things that we've done for a while, so we should be able to do them in a simple way. And the second one is be comfortable with the uncomfortable. Put your stuff in situations you've never done before so you can grow professionally and personally. So for example, to give a personal story, I've never done a podcast. This is my first one, so thank you for having me.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
um, yeah, and I never done it. So this is a whole new experience for me. to do, but I am going to learn from it. I'm going to grow from it. And hopefully, if I do one in the future, it'll be better. I'll improve. And I
Agree.
don't believe in born natural or it from young age. I think everything is all about training and improving yourself every day. And then the last one is from you, Jody, is create
Me?
your own table, which I've been using. Like I used it at least 50,000 times since you told me,
Oh,
telling people about
really?
how, yeah. And I
Thank
said, look, we all talk about, please give me a seat at the table. And I learned from my friend that you should create your own table, right? Bring the
you.
superstars and the people you want to work with and create your own initiatives and make it happen. Don't wait for others to give you an opportunity. Create your own opportunity. And that is something I really, really like. And I tell
Thank
it to everybody I meet.
Oh, thank you.
When they're
Thank
like,
you.
oh, I want to do this. Huh? What's that?
I was just going to say, because sometimes, even if you get a seat at that table, you find out it's not the right table for you, and
Mm-hmm.
so thank you
Mm-hmm.
for saying, number one, I just want to stop you for a quick second because I'm so grateful that you decided to make Today's the Day Changemakers your first podcast to be on. So we're
Mm.
honored to have you. And number two, thank you, my friend, for having me included in your top three things there. That's beautiful. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's well deserved. Well deserved. And so these are the big leadership lessons. There are other ones like listen, learn, help people, promote people, celebrate people's accomplishments, highlight their work. There's a lot of things, being accountable, determined, and so on and so forth. But out of that, and out of my training and experiences and education, I created a whole program about what is your leadership philosophy. And what we do is three big exercises. One is we map your career based on pivotal moments. Think about first job, for example, educational attainment. We talk about your experiences and the hard work you put in to get to where you are today. It doesn't, I always tell people it's not like the movies or the shows, you have a house, it's easy, you have a lot of money. It's nothing like that. We have to work every day, a lot of us 12 to 16 hours sometimes to make things happen, right? Nothing comes easy, and movies and shows really don't portray the reality of the real reality of working folks. The other thing we do after we map your career, or we could do even think of it as a career ladder. The second thing we do is your tagline. What is your leadership brand? If we created a simple tagline, think of Nike. Nike has a simple phrase. What is it? Just do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very simple. Once you see it, you know it's Nike. Mine is friendly, fair, and firm. Very simple. It tells people that I'm approachable. I'll treat everybody fairly, but when we don't meet the organizational objectives and the goals that the leadership set up, I will have to talk to you about it. We'll have to have a conversation because we all have to follow the benchmark that leadership creates. So, and everybody knows that. Every time I hire somebody, I tell them about my tagline and how I do things. So they know what to expect from me and they know what I expect from them. So map your career. The second one, tagline. The third one is 10 commandments. And think about, we have our own 10 commandments with the higher power. And then, what are your 10 commandments? How do you want people to think about you and how they should deal with you? So, mine's, or I'll give you a few, for example, life learner, being positive. And I always like to tell this story about where I managed this individual. It's many, many years ago. And every time I said good morning, he'll have a really negative story and every morning. So what I did as a result is I would see him coming this way, I'll go that way. I knew he goes to the kitchen at 8:30. I wouldn't go into the kitchen at 8:30. But at that point in my life, I was too young to understand, hey, if I had 10 commandments and I said, hey, one of them is to be positive. Now, of course, if there are funerals and things happen, life happen, but I'm just saying every day when there's really no big issue and this individual takes everything to a negative territory, then I have a problem with that. So, but I did at the time is avoid him. But now when I hire people, I sit with them and I tell them about my tagline and my 10 commandments and say, hey, one of them is I like you to be positive. Of course, I would understand all have tough days and that's normal, but don't make it a pattern and a trend because then I will have to talk to you about it. We're here to help each other and uplift each other, not to put each other down and pull each other down. So that helped me kind of formulate my leadership style. And then I work with people to build their leadership style so people know what to expect from them and how to work with.
Incredible. And I love all of that. And you make it simple, like you talked about before, right? You do exactly what you say. You're living it, not just speaking about it. It's so true about those who come around us that have, that negative pull where you're running the other way. You think about the person that rings your cell phone and you kind of are like, oh, I don't want to answer that call, right? Because that's so whenever, and I'm just bringing awareness to the listeners right now too, is that who are you to someone else when your number shows up or when you're standing in the kitchen at your organization? What are people remembering about you? Do they want to come into the kitchen at 8:30 if you're in there or answer your phone call? Um, and that's what we don't always have, that retrospect of like, what do people feel when our number flashes on their phone or when we're standing in the kitchen and they're coming in? Not everybody has that emotional intelligence to really connect with that. So that's a really great point. I wanted to ask you, a lot of leaders, and I've had these, unfortunately, leaders, so many leaders that have been mentors. So I want to stop it. We'll talk about mentorship in a minute, but
Mhm.
also those who led by fear. So
Mm,
there are those leaders that
mm,
they instill the fear of what's not happening, right? It's, a group, the group, something's not happening with the group. So there's this fear of, oh, everybody's gonna get fired, or, your jobs are always on the line. And I've worked for some of them since, and the bad news is I can remember them from 18 years old. I remember working for somebody at 18 being nervous every time they came to my desk, like just this fear. You're innocent, you're just starting out in the workforce. And that kind of went up in different places throughout my career. And then I got older, I stopped being afraid. But the key is, how do you lead without fear when you're getting from the top? If you're not the CEO, but you're getting from the top the pressure, so that goes kind of, how do you stop it from going down to your subordinates? Because it's really important that you do not push the pressure down if you're getting it from up above.
this is like, I was thinking as you're talking, this is where you have to go where you're valued. And if you have a leader that intimidate you, you're in the wrong place. And I think this is a quote by 50 Cent, which is a rapper. And
I
he
love
said,
this.
think about a bottle of water. If you buy it at the grocery store, it's $1. If it, $1. If you buy it in the airport, it's $3. If you buy it on the airplane, it's like could be $6, $7. His point was that it's not where you're buying the bottle, it's where it's located. And sometimes we are at a place where we shouldn't be. And we should go to the place where it pays us the $6, or a higher income and value us and doesn't intimidate us. If somebody intimidates you, for me, that's not a place to be. And what we often do is when we have a difficult manager, which I had, unfortunately, I had even a manager who went to their manager and said, Nicole did this, and I didn't. I did, and I was frank. I was like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. But they didn't care. They still blamed me, and I left. I left as a result. And then when I left, the president tried to keep me, and I said, "I'm so sorry, but I can't work for a person that lies and use my name." So it is so important to be in a place that value you. Currently, I'm fortunate because the leadership really is very kind, leads by example, sends us to do fun stuff like mentoring people and doing the leadership lessons, and gives us the resources and the tools to innovate and uplift us in many, many ways. But I would just to your comment, Rudy, if somebody is intimidated, they're not at the right place. And what happens is if enough people leave this individual, they will hopefully learn to be accountable, that having power doesn't mean you can say whatever you want, do whatever you want. Having power means you're accountable. It means that you have to work very hard for the people you oversee to make sure that they're happy, to make sure they have the resources and the technology to be successful, to tell them and have honest conversations when it's necessary, because honesty is kindness. And to deliver it, like my manager says, Leslie Hirsch, to deliver it with kindness. Like this is what happened, and here you do very well in these areas. Now we're going to work on the areas where need improvement. And even me, I'm not perfect. Sometimes I get it right, and many, many times I don't get it right. But I learn from them and I take accountability. In fact, I'm reading a book called Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke, and she talks about how when we succeed, we take all the credit. You know, I did this perfectly, I did it correctly, me. But when we fail, we point to luck, we point to other people, rather than look and reflect, like you said, reflect what happened? What did I do? What did I do right? Where do I need to improve? What didn't I account for? And now I didn't do well at whatever I'm trying to do. And her point is when you fail, don't look at others, don't look at luck, look at yourself. And the big area, it is okay to fail because that means you tried something. Now you know it doesn't work. Now you can move to another area. So there are different ways to look at failure, but it's not to beat you up, it's to take it as a lesson. Because life, for me at least, every time I go through something, I learn something. And based on that, I'll be like, okay, this is what I can do better next time. So, yeah, leadership by intimidation. Leave them, find your place. And it's not about money, even. It's sometimes you'll make less money, but you're happy. And that's more important, in my opinion, than making a lot of money and then you're not happy.
100%. I totally agree with that. And I've looked at the Brene Brown way of failure because for some reason, society has taken that word failure and it hurts, right? When you feel like you failed, you judge yourself and your ego is tarnished, right? You can feel the pain of that. So the word failure has been used in such a derogatory way. But when we fall, right? Like when
Mm,
babies fall, we get back up and we may not ever run right over sidewalk that's uneven again because we learned our lesson that's we scraped our knees, keeping this simple. We scraped our knees, we put a band-aid on, and we'll never do that again. We learned from it and we move on and work, and walk instead of run on an uneven pavement. So I like to look at it as falling instead of failing, only because the connotation is you can get back up and try again. People look at failure as like, well, if I failed at this, then will I fail at that? And that
mm.
and sometimes, and the only reason, as a coach myself too, I hear people that really get paralyzed from feeling like they failed. So,
Mhm, mhm.
but we all need to talk about failure in a positive way where you learn from it.
Yeah.
So I appreciated what you said about that. And I know you've brought up this book before, so I want to read this book. It sounds really good.
Yeah, yeah, no, excellent book. Highly recommend it.
I the other thing too is that if you're in a leadership position and you are getting pressure from the top, it's being able
Mhm,
to yourself. Maybe they're not being derogatory, but there's a lot of pressure in the role
mhm,
as a
mhm.
leader. What would you say, in your opinion? How do you not have that pressure go down to the people in your team? Because, we're still human beings. And when we feel overwhelmed, we have to do something to break through that and get through that so that we don't pass it down. And it may just not even be in a leadership role. It can be in a
Yeah.
relationship. It can be in anything. What are your thoughts and what do you do? and when you're feeling pressured not to do the same to your team.
Yeah, yeah, I think of everything as being rational, reasonable, and responsible. And I always tell my managers, I'm happy to do it, but give me the resources to do it. And the same thing I tell my staff. If I ask you for something, I'm going to provide the resources to make you successful. So this is the difference. And going back to intimidation is a leader will know that they're giving you something to succeed. So even if we're getting pressure to do something from the top, they will provide all the resources to make us successful. And at least in my recent experience, it's been really wonderful because we'll get a request, we'll send our timeline, and typically it is accepted. If there's a pressure, then what we do, and there's a need, then we will dedicate resources to meet that need swiftly if management require it, because we are here to serve the people who New Jerseyans elect, and we have to respect the voters' decisions. And if the voters decide to elect somebody who comes and asks us to do a lot of stuff, then we'll have to move resources to make sure that we're meeting their wishes, which is basically reflecting the voters' wishes. So typically, I come up with a plan, I send it up, get approvals, and then when everybody approves it and happy with what we come up, then we start working on it. But sometimes you have to shift priorities, you have to adapt to the environment and try your best to accommodate the requests that you're getting from above. You should, for me, it's like a simple way. Try your best and hope for the best. It's really not in my control. And there are other people who control certain things, and I just have to understand what's in my control and to work with the resources that I have.
Well, thank you for that. And I think, for anybody listening that's dealing with a tougher situation, as Nicole said, it may not be the right space for you. But we also have this thing where it's hard to say no, right? Or that's not going to work. And not necessarily to say no, but to be able to say and be realistic, right? You're not, without the resources, how am I going to get this done? And sometimes we don't ask the questions. And I think that's the other piece too. Just because we want to be a star at work and we want to be successful and excel, especially when we're first starting out, doesn't mean that you need to be unrealistic in what you can do, because the pressure doesn't need to be on, right? We only have this one life and we're working 12 hours plus a day. We need to be happy in that 12 hours, right?
We need to be curious, intellectually curious, and challenge ourselves. And some people might work 8 hours and that's their happiness, and that's okay. I always tell people when I mentor them, it's create the recipe that works for you, that makes you happy. So what I do might not work for you, and that's okay. That's okay that we have different opinions, different backgrounds, different experiences. We can learn from each other and adopt what we like. And then if we don't like it, hey, it's okay.
So who do you provide the leadership trainings to? Tell us a little bit about this part of Nicole and what you're doing to help other leaders and through your programming.
Yeah, so there's a couple of ones. I'm part of the New Jersey Department of Labor mentorship program, and I mentor people there, and I customize it based on what they're looking for. So one person right now, we're talking about their background and how it shaped their opinions in their 40s. And we're going backwards, kind of learning about what we can um, learn from their stories and what happened today. Another person, we're working on their bio. So we're crafting their bio and working on what do they want to tell people. What's their legacy? That's your bio, basically. It's a snapshot of your current legacy, and maybe some of it you can mention previous stuff you have done. So it goes from personal to professional. Then I'm also part of the Northeastern University's mentorship program, which is I mentor a postdoc and a PhD. The postdoc, we're working on their resume because they will look for a job soon. Then the PhD student, we're working on their mapping their career. and their accomplishments. And this individual has really unique and creative history where they were in the arts, then went into business, then did their MBA, and now they're doing their degree in economics and PhD. So really diverse background. And I always emphasize the importance of creative things like arts and degrees like political science that teaches you how to think critically. So I was so impressed by this individual and learning about their history and how they got to their PhD program now and pivoting in the research world and trying to build a whole different career from what they've done before. So the mentorship and the leadership kind of they overlap a little bit. And then I work with people who are friends and colleagues. For example, I just finished with one mapping their career, and they took it to their therapist, which was cool to see, like to talk about their history and what happened and why they are what they are. And so it's really kind of developed into many areas where I do it based on the person and what they want to do. And then I implement my strategies and what I think they should do. I'm working with another person on building their career ladder and kind of going through each position and the lessons they learned. And I've done mine yesterday just because I was like, oh, it would be cool to see what I put on this one. And you have a ladder. I was at Mercer County Community College, then I went to Taiko International, then I went to TCNJ, then I went as an intern and a manager at the local chamber. Then I went to NJBIA, which I know you worked there as well,
Mhm, mhm.
and worked there for a couple of years. Then I went to Treasury. Then now I'm here, and then I list all the lessons I learn this way to help me kind of think about life as a everything we do, there's a lesson and I can hopefully learn it and improve from there.
I think that's amazing. I don't think we'd sit there. I know when I think about, I'm listening to you and what you're saying and thinking about, wow, yeah, there's so many lessons I learned from every single place I went to. I call working for the American Heart Association was my boot camp in nonprofit because that's where I got my sea legs there for the nonprofit world. So, it's figuring out and remembering those also, those who mentor you and lifted you up because we kind of and try to pay back that by helping others, right? So just curious, did you have a mentor as you were moving through, and who would that be if you don't mind sharing?
It's interesting because I don't know if I can point to one person. I think for me at least, every person can be a mentor in different capacity. Like think about me learning from you how create your own table. That was a coachable moment for me. It's like, wow, that's a concept that is really wonderful and very, very profound. So every person I meet, whether it's a family member, a friend, a colleague, a professor, I actually learn from them and then take it with me for life. So I can't point to one person because there are so many wonderful people who impacted my life positively, from the family that I lived with to the managers I have. Um, uh, it's hard to pinpoint one person, but what I typically do is try to learn and take like a bit of wisdom from each person that I interact, because the vast majority of the people you'll meet, they're smart, hardworking, went through a lot of difficult experiences, and you can learn from them. In fact, in our language, we say a person who's older than you, in 1 year older than you, can teach you 99%, 99 lessons. So when you meet somebody, I typically concentrate, what could I learn from them? And there's so many wonderful people. I feel bad mentioning like one person.
It's interesting. I love what you just said about, what can I learn from them? Where in life, so many times where we come from a competitive space, right? Where it's like if you hear that somebody's doing the same thing as you, or and does it better, right, instead of what can I learn from them because they know how to do it better, we feel, and I'm not, can feel less than, or put ourselves on the defensive. And I think I love that you come from this space, and I feel the same way. Is that, what can I learn? And I'm learning a lot from you. I tell you one thing too is the methodicalness of the way you do things, right? Sounds it sounds much slower than the way my brain, but better, right? Because the focus is there. You're very focused, and I love that. And I mean, I've been taking notes over here. If anybody could see the papers, they'd see I have two-sided page here from your quotes to all the wonderful things that you're saying. And so mentorship is important, but you don't necessarily have to tell somebody they're your mentor or that you want them to be your mentor. It's just listening, right? And being open
Yeah,
to
and
that.
sometimes your mentees become your mentor. Like one of my mentees is a wonderful, wonderful guy, manages 6 people, and sometimes I'll bounce ideas ask him, "Hey, what's your opinion about this?" In fact, he's such a phenomenal guy that I asked him to mentor one of my staff, and now the person he's mentoring is gaining so much experience from him, learning, using words he has never used, like, "Oh, it's nice to talk to somebody. I have great news for you." So sometimes you meet those people, you're like, I should be the mentee of this individual. So I get lucky to be sometimes the mentor, but I always tell them from the outset, don't look at the label. Let's work on the relationship, because sometimes I'll mentor, but sometimes you'll mentor me as well. So yeah, learning is a big, big area that it keeps me going.
I always say, everybody you meet is at one point you're the teacher and one point the student. You're the student.
Mm,
So everybody you meet is, every conversation, somebody is the teacher,
mhm.
somebody is the student, and that can switch throughout the entire time you're in the same place. So, it's just we don't pay attention to that. We don't walk away from each situation going, what did I learn from that today? And just kind of we take it and we keep going because we're on cruise control, I say most times, right? We just kind of live and keep going. Um, in regards to anything else that you wanted to share that we didn't cover, what else would you like to share with the audience today?
Yeah, I would. So I'm working with you on this as well, but I'm doing these articles on real world leadership lessons, and there are short articles where people like us who manage people and then manage nonprofits, small businesses, write about an example or a pivotal moment that they went through as leaders and how they dealt with it. So I always love to give this example where when I came into this job, I had an employee who was very upset. And she came to my office and said that she feels slighted. She's very upset and she's yelling. And she said, "I'm sure you're going to ask me to calm down." And I said, "No, please feel free to tell me exactly what you're thinking. I'll bring your managers, we'll talk about it, but feel free to let your emotions and feelings out." And because we gave her that space, because we allowed her to express her feelings, and then the managers explained why they did what they did, at the end of it, we were laughing, talking about our weekend plans. We're talking about what we are going to do next week as a team. So typically you hear people's like, "Calm down." When did that ever help or the situation? It escalated it. But let people tell you what they want to tell you, and then listen to them, ask them to tell you more, then explain the decision. Then, as a leader, you did your work. And then
Right.
hopefully they'll be rational, reasonable, and responsible in their reaction. So, if anybody would be interested to write those with me, please reach out. I'm doing one with you, which we're working on, and hopefully I'll release them this year or next year. I haven't decided yet when to release them, but I'm hoping it helps people like us, small businesses, nonprofits, government workers, who we typically don't have resources to buy a lot of books, to go to training, to do all of the stuff that could help us enhance our skills. So through real world examples and reading short stories, maybe that could help us learn how to deal with real world examples.
I love that. And it is very true. We don't have lots of time, so the short stories that we can read are important. As you know, I'm trying to do that with a compilation book that I'm going to be, we're putting together with my change makers that
Hmm.
hopefully will be, fingers crossed. I've been trying to put together any kind of book at this point. Have written two books that have not gone anywhere, but this compilation book I really believe is going to do well. So that's why it's like everybody owns a chapter too, because the shorter the better, because our time and our attention span is short. Um, but there's so many lessons that we can learn from each other and need to, and it's so important to share. So I'm glad that you opened it up to anybody who can find you on LinkedIn. So it's under Nicole Nicola, right? On LinkedIn,
Hmm.
that people where
Hmm.
people can find you. And then, I did have one more question that came to mind before I asked the last one. And that is, you talk a lot about talking to your team, and I love you're so right. I do it sometimes too. I say, calm down. Like, and then I'm like, no, you don't, no, that's not going to work. Let me rephrase that. Because it's kind of our natural thing to do that. When it comes to team building, right, and team motivation, what
Hmm.
kind of tips, tools, resources, things that you do with your team that keep people cohesive in an environment when, things are kind of crazy in the world right now? So how are you keeping everything going?
So I do various initiatives. For example, I always give credit when credit is due. So if I send something to the commissioner, I'll copy the individuals that worked on the project and say, so and so, here are all the members. Thank you for working on this project. I'll also tell them how this project will impact our community. So they're aware of their own impact and influence. So a lot of credit. Then I will celebrate their accomplishments, whether getting lunch or getting together, getting ice cream, or throwing a birthday party. Or we had a few people who got to 40 years, so we did a whole celebration for them. So constantly thanking them, constantly celebrating their accomplishments. And then I do this once a year. I meet everybody, and they have between half an hour to an hour to tell me whatever they want. And every year I pick a theme. This year's theme is what would you like to accomplish in the next 5 years, and how I can help you accomplish them. Whatever initiatives you want. And one person expressed that he wants to go out and present, which typically what I do, I go around the state and the country and present about our work. So now he's becoming my partner. Sometimes I'll send him, sometimes I'll go. He's actually going to do a few ones coming up with various groups. So allowing people to tell you what they want to do and then helping them get there is, I think it's motivating them to do better. And remember, we don't have resources. So when we put lunches together or parties, we're paying for it. The managers typically cover for that. But we feel that bringing people together is very, very important for team building. And then we try our best to hire people, provide resources, promote people. But a lot of my work is just sitting and listening, like 40 to sometimes 60%. I'm just sitting and listening to people about their needs, about their issues and how to resolve them. And the mentorship, I mentor them as well. I do all this leadership stuff with them, and I talk about where they're succeeding and where they need to improve. And I tell them, I want to be honest with you because I want to get you to the next level. But if you don't improve, you might not get that chance then to go to the next level. So various initiatives, and then I always pivot. So if I see something worked, I continue it. If it doesn't, I change it. So a lot of changing, a lot of thinking, researching, talking to people, giving people the space to tell me what they think, and then doing different things. Like, for example, since I came, we have put out around probably around like 30 to 40 publications talking
Mhm.
about an industry, talking about celebrating a group within our community. And these are like short, concise about the industry or the group within our state, so people learn about like the healthcare industry, for example, or the veterans within our community. So doing things different sometimes will also help you motivate your team. And then once a year I get them all together. Like last year I got them all together and got a breakfast, a healthy breakfast, and we sat and we did like, how do you take notes? That was a workshop. Come up with innovative ideas for us to publish. That was another workshop. And then we did even like a bingo game where you go around to learn about people, and whoever gets the boxes wins a gift card. So we did a lot of kind of, I think it's not only me, I don't want to take credit because we have a wonderful leadership group that does this, but we're constantly doing initiatives that bring people together to talk and network, not only about work, but also about how are you doing? How was your weekend? What did you do? Are you traveling this year? So to open kind of and break barriers and bring people together, but that takes time and effort and resources, which lucky for me, we have a committed group that is interested to do it. And I am very lucky because my team is an excellent team, and all of them are not only smart, but they're also talented individuals. So I have it really a very, very positive experience.
They must be giving you lots of chocolate, huh?
Yes, yes, lots of chocolate.
Well, what I'm hearing from you is active listening and open communication. Sounds like those are the two key things from this end. And and again, simple, but not always done, right? And looking at what works and pivoting, as you said, with what doesn't. But what I did hear was a lot of getting people together to celebrate, right? Not always looking at the negative pieces. In a leadership role, the important piece is that constant communication and the positive reinforcement. Doesn't matter if you're a parent because you're leading there too, or if you're in your friend group, right? And you want to stay positive, and then also at work, it's just so important. Quick thing too, it wanted to ask you was books. Now you mentioned one. Is there any other books that kind of come to mind that you've read that just you really resonated with you?
Yeah, another one, I talked about The Hidden Potential by Adam Grant, which he talks about being comfortable with the uncomfortable. I would recommend that book because it tells you about how we succeed. If we have the right environment, the right community, the right support, we tend to succeed more likely than potentially people, unfortunately, who don't have the same access to resources and people. And it talks about important lessons, how to build an environment where you're successful, taking also uncertainty into the equation, because even, we can have jobs today, but God forbid things change, things can happen. And trying to learn from everything you see and being okay with things not going your way and looking into things to grow and putting yourself in the right environment where you're valued. So that's a very, very good book. But I do have a list of books that I read throughout the years. So if anybody's interested in that list, I'm happy to share it if they reach out.
That's great. I'm trying this year to focus in with my Changemakers to help people find the right books to read because there's so
Mm.
many out there, but then you sit there and you read some and you're like halfway through and you're like, this isn't for me, or just a couple chapters in. And so it's nice to get some recommendations out there. Last question. What's next for Nicole?
Oh, well, I talked about now working on the leadership lessons, which this is a big one that I'm trying to create uh, series of articles and then release them. So that's a big thing for me. And then the next part that we're doing, my team and I, is we're reaching out to chambers, organizations, businesses to tell them about the data. So we're enhancing our outreach so people know we have data to help them make informed decisions. So these are my two big initiatives this year, in addition to my normal ones like working and doing our normal projects, is to help people learn about us and how we can help them. And hopefully, we'll get we have a list that people can join. We have around 3,000 individuals that receive our emails and publications. It's not, we don't bombard people. We send something once a month or once every other month about our publications. A couple of them are coming out soon. For example, we're putting one on Fortune 500 in New Jersey, their footprint in terms of employment and wages. Really cool, cool kind of a small series that we call the Labor Market Spotlight. Is 2 pages talking about an industry, or as I mentioned, a community. And then we're going to release one on Fortune 500 in the coming weeks. And then we do other ones which relate to the economy, like releasing the employment numbers, which is something we do almost every month. So yeah, a lot of things happening, and hopefully I'll be okay at the end of the year. I'll need a good vacation soon. So.
Sounds it. Totally sounds it. I've been saying this because I learned this from a TED talk that I listened to. You're a multi-potentialite, like myself, like that we
Mm,
can't stick with one thing. We love to do several things, and that's good. It used to be like if you're going to do it, do something, just do that and focus in on it and do it right. But nowadays, most of us are doing multiple things because that's what fills our bucket. And I listened to this fabulous TED talk from Emily, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to get her name right, but it was called about being a multi-potentialite. So I give Emily credit for the word. I did not create it, but it's a great word, I think. So
oh yeah,
thank
please share it. Would love to hear it.
Absolutely, I will totally share it. I love that. I'm trying to get her on the show because it's really
Mm.
what was shared was really wonderful. Uh, thank you. Thank you for sharing your light and all the things that you're doing. And I'm just so glad we've met and we've worked at some of the same places, which is just really kind of funny too. It's been so wonderful to chat with you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun. My first one.
Yay. And you did it. You did. And you're so good. You're such a natural. This is easy. This is easy. But I'm going to again thank Nicole Nicola. You can find her on LinkedIn if you want to link in with her. Oh, I should ask you, is there a way to sign up for your emails through your organization for anybody from New Jersey who wants to receive it?
Yeah, it's on my LinkedIn, or if somebody reaches out, I'll send them the link
Okay.
or the barcode. Very easy.
Perfect. Perfect. We'll go that way. Wonderful. Thank you again. I'm going to say what I say at the end of every single podcast. Today is the day. You cannot go back to yesterday, and you do not yet own tomorrow. So, what steps are you going to take today, small or large, that are going to get yourself closer to your goals? Thank you so much again, Nicole, and have a great week, everyone. Bye.